Welcome, dear friend. Tonight, we begin a journey into stories that are as old as the forests, as deep as the rivers, and as timeless as the sky. These are the Jataka Tales, the stories of the Buddha's past lives, when he walked this world not only as a great sage, but in countless forms, as animals, kings, merchants, wanderers, and even simple villagers. Each tale reveals a seed of awakening. In one life, he practiced compassion. In another, he practiced patience. In yet another, he gave all he had in generosity. Over countless lives, these virtues were nourished, watered, and tended, until at last they bloomed fully in his enlightenment. The Jataka Tales are not just fables. They are mirrors, showing us that awakening is not sudden, but gradual. A path walked step by step, life by life, with each act of kindness, each choice of courage, each breath of compassion. As you listen tonight, you need not hold tightly to the words. Let them drift through you, like the sound of wind through trees, like the flow of water in a gentle stream. The teachings will settle on their own, like seeds carried by the breeze, finding quiet places in your heart. The day is over. The noise has softened. Whatever burdens weighed upon you can be set down now. This is your time to rest, to breathe, to be. Take a slow, deep breath in and let it go softly. Again, inhale calm. Exhale tension. With each inhale, imagine fresh air filling your body with light. With each exhale, imagine your worries dissolving into the night. Breathing in, you are safe. Breathing out, you are free. The Jataka Tales often speak through the voices of animals and the whispers of nature. A deer offers wisdom. A monkey shows selflessness. A parrot braves fire. A rabbit gives his life for kindness. Their forms may change, but their message is the same. Compassion is stronger than fear. Generosity greater than greed. And wisdom brighter than ignorance. As you listen, imagine yourself resting beneath a great tree. The stars shimmer above, the night air is cool, and the earth beneath you is steady. Around you, the world grows still. One by one, the stories arrive, like fireflies glowing in the dark, each carrying a gentle light to guide you. You do not need to chase meaning. You do not need to grasp for understanding. Let the tales do their work quietly, softly. Like a river shaping stone, they will touch your heart in ways unseen. Take another breath in and let it out slowly. Inhale stillness. Exhale rest. With each breath, feel yourself sinking deeper into calm. With each breath, Feel yourself carried closer to peace. Tonight, we will walk through 12 Jataka Tales. In them, you will meet the Monkey King, who sacrifices himself for his tribe, the Golden Deer, who teaches compassion to a king, the Brave Parrot, who faces fire to save the forest, the Selfless Hare, who gives his body to feed the hungry, and many more. Each tale is both gentle and profound, both simple and eternal. Let these stories cradle you like the arms of the night. Let them soothe you like the rhythm of waves. Let them guide you like lanterns glowing softly on the path. And so, dear friend, our journey begins. The first tale awaits, the story of the Monkey King and the river, teaching us the beauty of sacrifice and the strength of compassion. The Monkey King and the River. Long ago, in the deep forests of India, there lived a great troop of monkeys. They were many, hundreds upon hundreds, swinging through the branches, playing in the trees, and gathering fruits along the riverbanks. Their leader was no ordinary monkey. He was wise, strong, and kind. His eyes shone with intelligence, and his heart was filled with compassion for his tribe. He was known as the Monkey King. He did not rule by fear or force, but by care, guiding his followers as a father guides his children. One season, the river that flowed through the forest grew fierce with rains. Its waters rose high, flooding the banks, swallowing the trees that once grew near its edge. The monkeys were trapped on the far side, their food running scarce. To survive, they would need to cross the raging river. But the current was swift, foaming with power, carrying branches and stones downstream. The younger monkeys trembled, the mothers clutched their children, and the elders shook their heads in despair. "We cannot cross," they cried. "The river will take us all." The Monkey King watched them with compassion. His heart ached for his people. He knew that to do nothing was to let them starve, yet to act was to risk his own life. Still, he did not hesitate. He climbed to the tallest tree by the riverbank. Gripping a strong branch, he stretched his body across the torrent. His arms clung to the trunk on one side. His legs reached toward the far bank. He became a living bridge. His body stretched across the waters. At first, the monkeys were afraid, but the king called out, "Do not fear. Step upon me. Walk across. I will hold you one by one." They climbed onto his back. The little ones were carried by their mothers. The weak were guided by the strong. Step by step, they crossed over his body to the far shore. The current roared below, but the king did not move. His muscles trembled. His breath grew ragged, yet he held firm. At last, all had crossed. The troop stood safely on the far bank, their hearts filled with relief. All were saved, except the king, who now lay weak and broken from the strain. The monkeys wept, gathering around him. One asked, "Great king, why did you do this? You could have saved yourself." With a faint smile, he whispered, "A leader does not abandon his people. My joy is in your safety. If my body becomes a bridge, and you find life upon the far shore, then my life has been well given." With those words, he closed his eyes. The river flowed on, carrying his sacrifice into eternity. The Buddha looked at his disciples and said, "In that life, I was the Monkey King. Even then, I practiced compassion and selflessness. Know this: true strength is not in holding power, but in giving oneself for others." The monks bowed deeply. Their hearts moved. They understood that sacrifice born of love is not loss, but the highest gift. Dear friend, this story is for us too. How often do we cling to our own safety, fearing to give, fearing to risk? Yet the Buddha reminds us, compassion is the bridge that carries others to peace. To give of yourself, even in small ways, is to build a bridge stronger than stone. Take a slow, deep breath in and release it softly. Again, inhale compassion. Exhale fear. With each breath in, imagine yourself strong as the Monkey King. With each breath out, imagine yourself becoming a bridge of kindness for those in need. Breathing in, you give. Breathing out, you are free. Perhaps tonight you feel weary, caught in your own struggles. Let this story remind you, even the smallest act of selflessness, an encouraging word, a helping hand, a smile, can carry another across the river of their suffering. Compassion is never wasted. Rest here in this truth. Breathing in, you are a bridge. Breathing out, you carry others to safety. The disciples who heard this tale carried it always. When they faced hardship, they remembered the Monkey King, who gave his life so his people could live. And in remembering, they found courage to give of themselves in great ways and in small. So tonight, let this story cradle you. Imagine yourself standing on the far bank of a river, the water roaring behind you. You are safe. You are free. Someone's compassion carried you here, and in your heart, you carry that same compassion forward. Now, dear friend, let us move onward. Ahead lies the second tale, the story of the golden deer, teaching us that compassion extends to every living being, no matter how small or fragile. The golden deer. Long ago, in the depths of a great forest, there lived a deer unlike any other. His coat shimmered like sunlight upon gold. His antlers gleamed with grace, and his eyes were filled with wisdom. The animals of the forest called him the golden deer, and they looked to him not only for his beauty, but for his compassion. The golden deer lived gently, harming no creature, treading softly upon the earth. He taught others kindness, protected the weak, and comforted those who suffered. All who lived near him loved him dearly, for he was a guardian of peace in the wild. In a kingdom nearby, a king ruled with power but little wisdom. One night, he dreamed of a radiant deer whose coat shone like the sun. When he awoke, the dream haunted him. He felt he must possess this wondrous creature. He sent forth hunters, commanding them, "Bring me the golden deer. Search every forest. Do not return until you have found him." The hunters spread through the land. For many weeks they searched, until at last, deep within the forest, they saw him, the golden deer grazing by the riverside. His coat glimmered like fire beneath the sun. The hunters' eyes widened with awe, but their orders pressed upon them. They raised their bows. The deer lifted his head, calm and fearless. He did not run, though the arrows were aimed. With gentle voice, he said, "Why do you seek my life? I harm no one. This forest is wide enough for all. Lay down your bows, and no blood need be shed." The hunters, struck by his words, lowered their weapons. "Truly, you are no ordinary beast," they said, "but the king commands us. If we return without you, we will be punished." The golden deer gazed at them with compassion. "Then let us go together," he said. "I will meet the king. I have no fear." When they reached the palace, the king beheld the golden deer and gasped. Never had he seen such beauty. Greed burned in his heart. He declared, "This creature shall be mine. Guard him well." But the deer spoke, "Great king, I am not yours to keep. I belong to the forest, to the rivers, to the earth itself. Take my body if you must, but know this: to harm one who is harmless brings only sorrow." The king trembled at the words. Never before had he heard such wisdom from an animal. His greed faltered. At last, he bowed his head. "You are no mere beast," he said. "You are a teacher. Forgive me. From this day forward, no hunter shall harm you or your kind. You are free." The golden deer bowed in return. "May compassion guide your rule," he said. Then he returned to the forest where he lived in peace, a shining reminder of kindness to all. The Buddha looked at his disciples and said, "In that life, I was the golden deer. Even then, I taught that compassion is greater than power, that to harm the innocent is to harm oneself. Remember this: true beauty is not in form, but in kindness. The monks bowed deeply, their hearts warmed by the teaching. Dear friend, this story is for us too. How often do we chase after what dazzles the eye, forgetting the deeper beauty of compassion? How often do we harm without cause, blinded by greed or fear? The golden deer reminds us, kindness is the truest treasure. To protect life, to honor peace, is the noblest act. Take a slow, deep breath in and release it softly. Again, inhale compassion, exhale greed. With each breath in, imagine the golden light of the deer's coat filling your heart. With each breath out, imagine your fears and cravings dissolving. Breathing in, you are radiant with kindness. Breathing out, you are free of harm. Perhaps tonight, your heart feels restless, chasing after something beyond reach. Let this story remind you, what you seek is already within you. The light of the golden deer is the light of compassion, shining quietly in your own heart. Rest here in this truth. Breathing in, you shine with love. Breathing out, you rest in peace. The disciples who heard this parable remembered it always. When greed arose, they thought of the golden deer. When anger stirred, they thought of his calm gaze. And in their hearts, compassion grew, gentle and steady as the forest itself. So tonight, let this story cradle you. Imagine yourself walking through a quiet forest. Ahead, by the river, the golden deer stands, his coat shining softly in the moonlight. He looks at you, not with fear, but with love. And in his gaze, you find rest. Now, dear friend, let us continue. Ahead lies another tale, the story of the King of Elephants, teaching us that even great strength is best used in service of compassion. The King of Elephants. Long ago, in the depths of a vast green forest, there lived a herd of elephants. They wandered through groves of banyan trees, bathed in clear rivers, and played among the tall grasses. Their leader was no ordinary beast. His tusks shone white as ivory. His body was strong as a mountain, and his presence was calm as the earth itself. But what made him a true king was not his strength. It was his heart. He cared for the calves, guiding them gently. He slowed his steps for the old and weary, ensuring no one was left behind. When quarrels arose among the herd, his voice was soft but firm, and peace returned. The animals of the forest trusted him, calling him the King of Elephants. One year, the rains did not come. The sky remained cloudless, the rivers shrank to trickles, and the ponds cracked into dust. Grass turned brittle, leaves fell lifeless, and thirst filled the throats of all creatures. Deer wandered weakly, birds fell silent, and even the great herd of elephants grew thin. One morning, while searching for water, the king of elephants heard a faint cry. He followed the sound through the dry forest until he came upon a deep pit. At the bottom lay a man. His lips were cracked, his body frail, his eyes full of despair. For days he had been trapped, unable to climb out, waiting only for death. The elephant's great heart stirred with compassion. He remembered the pain of his own herd, and though humans had often hunted elephants for tusks and hides, he felt no anger. He thought only, "This being suffers, I must help." Lowering his mighty trunk, he reached into the pit. Gently, carefully, he curled it around the man's body and lifted him into the air. The man gasped, clinging to the elephant's strength, until at last he was set safely upon the broad back of the king. With steady steps, the elephant carried him through the forest. Birds called weakly from the branches, and dry leaves crunched beneath his feet. At last, they reached the edge of the village. The elephant lowered himself, letting the man slide gently to the ground. The villagers rushed forward in astonishment. Never before had they seen such a sight. An elephant returning a human, not as prey or prisoner, but as a gift of mercy. The man, weeping with relief, told them, "This great king saved my life." From that day onward, the villagers vowed never to harm the elephants of the forest. Out of gratitude and reverence, they protected them, knowing their king was not only mighty, but compassionate. The Buddha looked at his disciples and said, "In that life, I was the king of elephants. Even then, I knew that true power lies not in conquering, but in saving. To use strength for harm is easy. To use strength for love, that is the highest greatness." The monks bowed deeply, their hearts moved by the teaching. Dear friend, this story is also for us. How often do we use our strength only for ourselves? How often do we forget that our gifts, our talents, our voices, our hands are meant to lift others? The King of Elephants reminds us, greatness is not in how much we take, but in how much we give. Take a slow, deep breath in and release it softly. Again, inhale strength. Exhale kindness. With each breath in, imagine yourself vast and steady as the elephant. With each breath out, imagine your strength flowing outward to protect and to serve. Breathing in, you are powerful. Breathing out, you are compassionate. Perhaps tonight you feel small, uncertain, or weary. Let this story remind you, true strength does not roar, it serves. Every gentle act, every kind word, every moment of patience is an act of an elephant's heart. Rest here in this truth. Breathing in, you hold steady. Breathing out, you give freely. The disciples who heard this parable carried it always. When pride tempted them, they remembered the elephant's humility. When weakness discouraged them, they remembered his compassion. And in this way, they walked the path of kindness, step by steady step. So tonight, let this story cradle you. Imagine yourself in a quiet forest at dusk. A great elephant approaches, his steps slow, his gaze gentle. He bows his head, not in fear, but in love. And in his presence, you feel safe, strong, and at peace. Now, dear friend, let us continue. Ahead weighs the fourth tale, the story of the brave parrot, who dared to face a raging fire with only his wings, teaching us that courage is not measured by size, but by the heart. The Brave Parrot. Long ago, in a forest lush with green leaves and flowing streams, there lived a small parrot. His feathers were bright, his eyes clear, and his wings quick and strong. Yet though he was small, his heart was vast, filled with care for the creatures of the forest. The parrot lived among deer, monkeys, rabbits, and countless birds. They drank from the same rivers, rested beneath the same banyan trees, and played in the same open meadows. The forest was their home, and peace filled their days. But one summer, lightning struck a tree. In moments, flames spread across the forest. The fire roared, smoke rose, and fear swept through the animals. Deer ran in terror, monkeys leapt frantically, and birds scattered into the sky. The little parrot, seeing the fire and the panic, felt his heart break. This forest is my home. These animals are my family. I cannot abandon them. He flew to the river, dipped his wings into the water, and rushed back over the flames. Beating his wings, he released droplets upon the fire. They hissed and vanished in the heat. Again and again he flew into the river, over the flames, back to the river. His feathers burned, his body ached, but he did not stop. The animals watching cried, "Parrot, what are you doing? Your wings are too small. The fire is too great. You cannot save us." But the parrot answered, "This is my home. These are my friends. I will do what I can, even if it costs me my life." High above, the gods looked down and saw the little bird fighting the great fire with drops of water. Some laughed, saying, "What foolishness!" But one god was moved. He said, "Though his wings are small, his heart is boundless." Such courage must not be ignored. The god descended as a great rain cloud. Thunder rumbled, lightning flashed, and rain poured from the heavens. The fire hissed, crackled, and at last was quenched. The forest was saved. The animals cheered and gathered around the parrot. His feathers were singed, his body weary, but his eyes shone with joy. The deer bowed, the monkeys clapped, the rabbits wept with gratitude. The parrot smiled and said, "It was not the strength of my wings, but the courage of my heart that saved us." When we act with love, even the smallest can do the greatest deeds. The Buddha looked at his disciples and said, "In that life, I was the little parrot. Even then, I knew that courage is not measured by size or strength, but by the willingness to act for others. Do not ask, 'Am I strong enough?' Ask instead, 'Is my heart willing?'" The monks bowed deeply, their spirits lifted. Dear friend, this story is for us too. How often do we feel small before the world's troubles? We see fires of anger, greed, and sorrow burning all around us, and we think, "What can I do? I am too small." But the parrot reminds us, no act of love is too small. Each drop of kindness matters. Take a slow, deep breath in and release it softly. Again, inhale courage. Exhale doubt. With each breath in, imagine dipping your wings in cool water. With each breath out, imagine scattering drops of compassion upon the flames of suffering. Breathing in, you are brave. Breathing out, you bring peace. Perhaps tonight, you feel powerless before your worries. Let this story remind you, even one breath of kindness, even one word of compassion, even one small act can change everything. You are not powerless. You carry the heart of the parrot, the courage to love. Rest here in this truth. Breathing in, you gather strength. Breathing out, you let kindness flow. The disciples who heard this parable remembered it always. When fear whispered that they were too small, they thought of the parrot. They dipped their own wings into the river of compassion, scattering drops of love wherever they could. And in time, the fires around them faded. So tonight, let this story cradle you. Imagine yourself in a quiet forest after rain. The smoke has cleared, the flames are gone, the earth is cool again. The parrot rests in the branches, his wings folded, his heart at peace. And beneath his courage, you too find rest. Now, dear friend, let us move onward. ahead. Fifth tale, the story of the Banyan Deer, teaching us the nobility of sacrifice and the power of compassion even in the face of death. The Banyan Deer. Long ago, in the fertile plains of India, there lived a magnificent herd of deer. Among them was one whose beauty and wisdom were unmatched. His coat shimmered golden brown, his antlers spread wide like branches, and his bearing was noble and serene. He was called the Banyan Deer, for his presence was as steady and sheltering as the ancient tree. The herd loved him, not for his appearance alone, but for his compassion. He guided them with fairness, protected the weak, and calmed the restless. In the heart of the forest, the Banyan Deer was their leader, their guardian, their friend. Nearby, a king ruled a great city. He delighted in hunting and often rode into the forest with his men. Countless deer fell to his arrows, and the herds lived in Bur. At last, weary of the chase, the king ordered a great deer park to be built. All the herds of the land were driven there, surrounded by high walls, so that he might hunt at leisure. Within the park lived two great leaders, the Banyan Deer and the Branch Deer, each guiding their own herd. The king declared, "Each day I shall feast on venison. The deer shall choose among themselves who will die. If you do not, I will slaughter you all." Fear spread among the herds. They wept, but there was no escape. To prevent chaos, the two kings of deer agreed. Each day, one deer from one herd would go willingly to the butcher's block, so that the rest might live another day. The Banyan Deer accepted this grim pact with calm dignity. When the choice fell to his herd, he guided the selected deer with compassion, blessing them with gentle words. He grieved each loss, but never abandoned his people. One morning, it was the turn of a young doe, heavy with unborn life. She trembled before the herd, tears in her eyes, and went to the Banyan Deer. Bowing, she said, "Great King, my time has come, but within me is another life. Grant me mercy until my fawn is born. Let me take my turn after the Banyan Deer's heart ached. He could not bear to see two lives lost instead of one. With steady voice, he said, "You will not go today. Return to the herd. I will take your place." The doe wept with gratitude, bowing low. The Banyan Deer, tall and noble, walked calmly to the palace gates. When the king saw him, he was astonished. "Why do you come, great one? No arrow has struck you. No man has driven you here." The Banyan Deer bowed his head. "Great King, today was the turn of a mother carrying new life. I could not let her perish, nor the fawn within her. I have come in her stead. Take me and spare them." The king was struck silent. Never had he seen such compassion, such selflessness, even among men. At last, he laid down his bow. "Great deer, your mercy shames me. From this day forward, no deer shall die by my hand. I grant freedom to all within the park. Go where you will, safe and unharmed." The Banyan Deer lifted his gaze, calm and steady. "O King, grant not only freedom to my herd, but to all deer, to all creatures who suffer in your hunts. Let your compassion extend beyond these walls." The king's eyes filled with tears. He nodded and declared, "So be it. From this day, no creature in my land shall be hunted for sport." And so, because of the sacrifice of the Banyan Deer, not only his herd, but countless beings were spared. The Buddha looked at his disciples and said, "In that life, I was the Banyan Deer. Even then, I knew that compassion is not only for one's own, but for all beings. To give oneself for another is the noblest path." The monks bowed deeply, their hearts filled with reverence. Dear friend, this story is for us too. How often do we think only of ourselves, forgetting the suffering of others? How often do we cling to life, fearing sacrifice? The Banyan Deer reminds us to give for another is not loss, but love. Compassion that embraces all beings is the greatest freedom. Take a slow, deep breath in and release it softly. Again, inhale compassion. Exhale fear. With each breath in, imagine yourself as the Banyan Deer, noble, steady, unafraid. With each breath out, imagine offering kindness, even at great cost. Breathing in, you are strong. Breathing out, you are selfless. Perhaps tonight you feel burdened by your struggles. Let this story remind you, every act of compassion, no matter the cost, plants seeds of peace that grow far beyond your sight. What you give with love endures forever. Rest here in this truth. Breathing in, you open your heart. Breathing out, you rest in peace. The disciples who heard this tale remembered it always. When they faced choices, they recalled the Banyan Deer, who gave his life not for glory, but for love. And in that memory, they too chose compassion. So tonight, let this story cradle you. Imagine a great forest, quiet beneath the moon. A noble deer walks among the trees, his antlers shining, his eyes gentle. He turns to you with kindness, and in his gaze, you find peace. Now, dear friend, let us continue. Ahead lies the sixth tale, the story of the Selfless Hare, who offered his very body to feed the hungry, teaching us that true generosity knows no bounds. The Selfless Hare. Long ago, in a quiet forest filled with tall grasses and blooming flowers, there lived 4 friends: a monkey, a jackal, an otter, and a hare. They were gentle creatures who shared what little they had and spent their days in harmony. Among them, the hare was the wisest. His fur was soft and silver gray, his eyes calm, and his heart pure. He often spoke to his companions, reminding them to live with kindness and generosity. When we share, he said, our lives become rich. When we give, our hearts grow bright one day. The god Chakra, Lord of the heavens, wished to test the depth of their virtue. He disguised himself as a poor, starving wanderer and descended to the forest. Approaching the 4 friends, he said, "Kind ones, I have traveled far with nothing to eat. Can you give me food?" The monkey leapt into the trees and gathered ripe mangoes, sweet and golden, placing them before the man. The otter dove into the river and returned with fresh fish glistening in his jaws. The jackal searched the fields and brought back curds and meat left behind by villagers. Each laid their gifts before the stranger. The hare looked around, but found nothing. He lived only on grass, and grass would not satisfy a hungry man. His heart filled with sorrow, but his resolve was strong. Turning to the wanderer, he said, "I have nothing to give you but myself. Build a fire, and when it is ready, I will leap into it. My body will be your food." The monkey, otter, and jackal gasped, "No, brother, do not do this." But the hare's eyes were steady. A gift is not measured by its form, but by the heart. If I have nothing else, then let me give myself. The disguised god built a fire, his heart heavy with awe. The hare approached, his body small, but his spirit vast. With no hesitation, he leapt into the flames. But instead of burning, he felt no pain. The fire turned cool as petals of lotus, for Chakra had revealed his true form. Gently, he lifted the hare from the fire and said, "Noble one, your selflessness shines brighter than the sun. Never shall your sacrifice be forgotten." With divine power, he painted the hare's image upon the face of the moon, so that all beings might look up and remember his gift. Even today, if you gaze at the moon on a clear night, you may see the outline of the hare resting there. The Buddha looked at his disciples and said, "In that life, I was the hare. Even then, I practiced the perfection of generosity, offering all I had, even my own body. Know this, the truest gift is given with no thought of self." The monks bowed deeply, their hearts filled with reverence. Dear friend, this story is for us too. How often do we cling to what little we have, fearing to let go? Yet the hare reminds us, when the heart is generous, nothing is lacking. To give is not to lose, but to shine. Take a slow, deep breath in and release it softly. Again, inhale generosity. Exhale fear. With each breath in, imagine the silver hare beneath the moon, calm and radiant. With each breath out, imagine your heart opening, giving freely without hesitation. Breathing in, you are abundant. Breathing out, you are free. Perhaps tonight, you feel you have little to offer. Let this story remind you, your kindness, your presence, your love are gifts beyond measure. Even the smallest act of care shines brighter than the moon. Rest here in this truth. Breathing in, you give. Breathing out, you rest in peace. The disciples who heard this parable remembered it always. When fear of giving arose, they looked to the moon. In its light, they saw the hare leaping into fire without hesitation, and their own hearts grew generous. So tonight, let this story cradle you. Imagine a clear night sky. The moon glows full and bright. Upon its face rests the image of the selfless hare, eternal in his gift. He looks upon you with calm eyes, reminding you that the greatest wealth is the heart that gives. Now, dear friend, let us continue. Ahead lies the seventh tale, the story of the prince and the hungry tiger, teaching us the depth of compassion that reaches even to those who frighten us. The Prince and the Hungry Tiger. Long ago, in a kingdom nestled among snow-capped mountains, there lived a young prince. He was gentle by nature, thoughtful in speech, and filled with a heart of compassion. Though he was born into wealth and surrounded by comfort, he often wandered into the forests and hills, seeking silence and the company of animals. One day, the prince set out with his brothers to explore the high mountains. The air was thin and cool, the path lined with pine trees and wildflowers. Streams of melted snow trickled down the rocks, their sound clear and refreshing. Birds circled in the vast sky, their wings flashing in the sunlight. As the princes climbed higher, they came upon a hidden glade. And there, before them, lay a sight that stilled their hearts. Beneath a tree, a tigress lay with her 3 cubs. But she was no ordinary tigress. Her body was frail, her eyes hollow, her breathing shallow. Hunger had ravaged her. For many days, she had found no food, and now she hovered near death. Her cubs whimpered weakly, pawing at her, searching for milk she no longer had the strength to give. The brothers gasped in fear. One said, "We must leave at once, or she will attack us." Another said, "No, she has no strength to move. She will die soon, and her cubs with her. There is nothing we can do." But the young prince stood silent, his gaze fixed upon the tigress. His heart ached as he watched her. He felt not fear, but sorrow. She suffers as any mother would suffer, he thought. She longs to feed her children, but her body betrays her. If she dies, her cubs too will perish. How unbearable their suffering must be. The brothers urged him on. "Come, let us go." This is the way of nature. Tigers hunt, and when they cannot, they die. Such is life in the wild. But the prince shook his head. "No, this is not just fate. She is alive before me, and I have the power to ease her suffering. Can I turn away?" The brothers, uneasy, replied, "What can you do? We have no food to offer her. Even if we brought her an animal, she is too weak to hunt." The prince looked again at the tigress. Her ribs showed through her skin, her eyes burned faintly with hunger, and her cubs cried softly at her side. Compassion surged within him, fierce and unstoppable. "I will not abandon her," he said softly. "I must think of a way." They returned to the path, but the prince's mind was restless. Each step felt heavy. His heart pulled back toward the tigress. His brothers tried to distract him with talk of the mountain's beauty, but he could not forget the sight of her gaunt body, her helpless cubs. At last he said, "Brothers, you go ahead. I will follow soon." They hesitated, but the prince assured them with a smile, "Do not worry. I only wish to rest here for a while." When they were gone, he turned back toward the glade. Each step closer, his resolve deepened. The forest seemed to fall silent as he approached the tigress once more. Kneeling at a distance, he whispered to her, "Noble mother, I see your suffering. I cannot bear it. Your cubs must not die with you. If there is no food for you, then let my body become your food." The tigress lifted her head weakly, her eyes barely able to focus. She was too frail to rise, but her hunger was real, her need urgent. The prince's heart beat steadily. He felt no fear, only compassion as deep as the mountain valleys. He pressed his palms together and bowed toward her. "Here we pause, dear friend." The prince stands before the tigress, his mind calm, yet filled with fierce love. In the next part, we will see the choice he makes, the sacrifice that has echoed through centuries as a symbol of boundless compassion. For now, let us rest with him in this moment of stillness. standing at the edge of decision, with a heart wide as the sky. Take a slow, deep breath in and release it softly. Again, inhale compassion, exhale fear. With each breath in, imagine the prince's calm, steady gaze. With each breath out, imagine the tigress's suffering easing. Breathing in, you feel his courage. Breathing out, you feel his love. So tonight, let this first part of the story cradle you. The forest is still. The mountains stand tall. And the prince kneels before the tigress, ready to give all that he has. In his heart, there is no hesitation, only boundless kindness. The prince knelt before the starving tigress. The cubs whimpered softly, nuzzling at their mother's side, too weak even to play. The air was heavy with silence, broken only by the faint rustle of wood in the trees. The prince pressed his palms together and whispered, "O noble mother, in my palace I have tasted food, heard music, lived in comfort, yet none of those joys are worth clinging to. If I turn away from suffering before me, if my body may save yours, then let it be so. If my flesh may feed your cubs, then let them live, and let me be at peace." He walked closer, his steps steady. The tigress lifted her head weakly, but her body had no strength to rise. Hunger gnawed at her, but she could not even move her jaws. The prince saw her suffering and understood. Even if she wished to eat, she was too frail. So he searched for a way. Picking up a sharp branch from the ground, he held it gently. With unwavering resolve, he struck himself to draw blood. The scent reached the tigress's nose, and slowly her hunger stirred. The prince then laid himself down before her. "Mother, take my body. Do not hold back. Let your cubs live, for they deserve to see the world, to walk the forest paths, to feel the sun upon their backs." At last, with a trembling motion, the tigress leaned forward. Her hunger, fierce and desperate, overcame her weakness. She fed, and her strength returned little by little. The cubs, too, found life through her. The forest was silent witness to this act. The trees stood tall, the mountains held their breath, and the earth itself seemed to bow in reverence. Far above, in the heavens, the gods watched. They were struck with awe at the sight of such boundless compassion. "This prince is no ordinary being," they said. "His heart is vast as the sky, his courage deeper than the mountains. He gives his life not for glory, but for love." Chakra, Lord of the heavens, descended and touched the earth where the prince had fallen. "May this sacrifice never be forgotten," he declared. "In future ages, he will be known as the Buddha, the awakened one, for his compassion has no limits. The tigress, nourished and alive, cared for her cubs until they grew strong. The forest thrived again, and the story of the prince's sacrifice spread across valleys and villages, carried in whispers of awe. The Buddha looked at his disciples and said, "In that life, I was the prince. Even then, I gave my life freely, that others might live. Know this, monks, the perfection of compassion is not measured by words or by wealth, but by the willingness to give oneself without hesitation." The monks bowed deeply, their eyes shining with tears. They understood. To live with compassion is to live beyond fear, beyond self. Dear friend, this story is also for us. How often do we hold tightly to what is ours, fearing to lose it? Yet the Prince reminds us, when we give, we are not diminished. We are expanded. To act with compassion is to step beyond the small self and enter the vastness of love. Take a slow, deep breath in and release it gently. Again, inhale courage. Exhale fear. With each breath in, imagine the steady heart of the Prince. With each breath out, imagine the tigress's suffering easing. Breathing in, you touch compassion. Breathing out, you rest in peace. Perhaps tonight, you feel torn between fear and love. Let this story remind you, compassion is always stronger. Even in the face of death, the Prince chose love, and that love lives on, in you, in me, in all beings who remember his gift. Rest here in this truth. Breathing in, your heart is vast. Breathing out, you are free. The disciples who heard this parable remembered it always. When they faced moments of fear or doubt, they thought of the Prince and the tigress, and in their own way, they too offered themselves in kindness, carrying forward his spirit of sacrifice. So tonight, let this story cradle you. Imagine a quiet mountain glade. A tigress lies with her cubs, safe and alive. Above, the stars shine gently, and within their light, you feel the presence of the Prince, his courage, his compassion, eternal and boundless. Now, dear friend, let us continue. Ahead is the 8th tale, the story of the wise rabbit and the moon, showing us how wisdom can dispel even the greatest illusions of fear. The Wise Rabbit and the Moon. Long ago, in a forest where the grass grew soft and the rivers flowed clear, there lived a small rabbit. His fur was white as snow, his eyes gentle, and his mind keen with wisdom. Though he was small among the creatures of the forest, they often came to him for guidance, for his thoughts were calm and his heart steady. The rabbit lived peacefully, eating tender shoots and resting beneath the trees. Each evening, he gazed up at the moon and felt comfort in its silver light. One night, as the animals slept, a strange sound rippled through the forest. The ground shook faintly, and a loud crash echoed from the distance. Startled, a deer leapt to his feet. "The world is ending," he cried. "The earth is breaking apart." Panic spread swiftly. The deer ran, and the monkeys followed. Birds burst from the trees, their wings beating frantically. "The world is ending," they cried. "Run, run!" The sound of their panic grew like thunder. More animals joined, fleeing blindly, their hearts filled with terror. The little rabbit awoke to the chaos. He saw the torrent of animals rushing past and called out, "Friends, where are you going?" "The world is ending," they shouted. "The earth is breaking apart. We must flee before it swallows us." The rabbit paused. He felt no fear, only curiosity. "Who has seen the earth breaking?" he asked. A monkey shouted, "The deer told us." And when he turned to the deer said, "I heard a great crash behind me and thought the world was ending." The rabbit's eyes softened. He understood. "Come with me," he said. "Let us see what truly happened." The frightened animals hesitated, but the calm voice of the rabbit soothed them. Step by step, they followed as he led them back along the path. Their fear slowed, though their hearts still pounded. At last, they reached the place where the deer had first heard the sound. There, beneath a tree, heavy with ripe fruit, lay the truth. A large mango had fallen to the ground, splitting with a loud crash. The rabbit looked at the animals and said gently, "Friends, the world is not ending." It was only a mango. Our fear was real, but the cause was imagined. The deer lowered his head in shame. "I let my fear deceive me, and I spread that fear to others." The rabbit placed a paw upon his shoulder. "Fear is natural, but wisdom is our guide. When we pause, when we look clearly, fear dissolves like mist in the morning sun." The Buddha looked at his disciples and said, "In that life, I was the wise rabbit. Even then, I taught that fear arises from misunderstanding. When we see clearly, we discover that the world is not ending. It was only a mango." The monks bowed, smiling through their relief. Dear friend, this story is also for us. How often do we hear a noise, face a shadow, or feel a tremor in life and think, all is lost? How often do we let fear carry us away before we stop to look? The rabbit reminds us, wisdom is not in running, but in pausing, breathing, and seeing clearly. take a slow, deep breath in and release it gently. Again, inhale wisdom. Exhale fear. With each breath in, imagine the silver light of the moon shining above you. With each breath out, imagine your fears dissolving like shadows at dawn. Breathing in, you are calm. Breathing out, you are free. Perhaps tonight, worries stir in your heart. You may fear tomorrow, or regret yesterday, or tremble at things unseen. Let this story remind you, not every sound is disaster. Not every shadow hides danger. With wisdom, you see the truth. With truth, fear fades. Rest here in this truth. Breathing in, you shine with clarity. Breathing out, you rest in peace. The disciples who heard this parable carried it always. When fear rose within them, they remembered the rabbit. They paused, they looked clearly, and they saw that the world was not ending. It was only a mango. So tonight, let this story cradle you. Imagine yourself beneath the moon, calm and steady. Around you, the forest rests. Fear has faded, replaced by stillness. And in that stillness, you drift gently into peace. Now, dear friend, let us continue. Ahead lies the 9th tale, the story of the merchant and the sea, teaching us that patience and perseverance carry us safely across life's storms. The Merchant and the Sea. Long ago, on the edge of a vast blue ocean, there was a bustling port city. Ships came and went each day, carrying silks, jewels, spices, and treasures from distant lands. In that city lived a merchant known not only for his wealth, but for his honesty, patience, and wisdom. Travelers trusted him, sailors admired him, and his word was valued as much as gold. One season, the merchant prepared for a great voyage. He gathered sailors and traders, loaded ships with goods, and set sail across the ocean. The morning they departed, the harbor was alive with excitement. Sails billowed in the wind, gulls cried overhead, and families waved from the shore. The men dreamed of riches, their hearts filled with hope. For many days, the journey was calm. The sea stretched like polished glass, reflecting the sky above. Dolphins danced beside the ships, and stars guided them at night. The sailors sang songs and laughed, their spirits light. But the sea, vast and powerful, does not remain calm forever. One evening, dark clouds gathered on the horizon. The winds grew fierce, the waves began to rise, and the sky rumbled with thunder. By nightfall, a terrible storm had descended. The waves crashed upon the deck, tearing sails and breaking ropes. Rain poured down, and lightning split the sky. The ships tossed like toys upon the water. Fear seized the sailors. Some shouted, "The sea will swallow us!" Others clung desperately to the cargo, unwilling to let go, even as the storm threatened to take their lives. But the merchant stood tall at the helm. His face was calm, his voice steady. "Brothers," he called out, "the storm is fierce, but it will not last forever. Trust the ship, trust one another. Let go of fear and hold fast with courage." The sailors trembled, but his words gave them strength. Together they worked to mend the sails, tie the ropes, and steady the ship. Their arms ached, their bodies shivered, but slowly their panic eased. The storm raged for many days. Waves as high as mountains rose and fell. The men grew weary, despair tugging at their hearts. Yet the merchant never faltered. Each morning he encouraged them, "The sun will return." "Do not give up each night," he reminded them. "Storms pass, but courage endures." At last, one dawn, the winds softened. The clouds broke apart, and the golden light of the sun spread across the calm sea. The storm was over. The sailors fell to their knees, tears of relief streaming down their faces. The merchant smiled and said, "You see, my friends, the sea is vast, and storms are fierce, but patience and courage bring us safely through. Riches may be lost, but life preserved is the greatest treasure." The Buddha looked at his disciples and said, "In that life, I was the merchant. Even then, I guided others across the storms of the sea with patience and steadiness. So too must you guide your minds across the storms of life, with calm, with trust, with endurance." The monks bowed deeply, their hearts filled with strength. Dear friend, this story is for us too. Life is like the ocean, sometimes calm, sometimes stormy. We cannot control the winds, but we can steer our ship with patience. We cannot stop the waves, but we can endure until they pass. The merchant reminds us, storms do not last, but a steady heart carries us safely to shore. Take a slow, deep breath in and release it softly. Again, inhale steadiness, exhale fear. With each breath in, imagine yourself standing firm at the helm of a ship. With each breath out, imagine the waves calming, the sky clearing. Breathing in, you endure. Breathing out, you arrive at peace. Perhaps tonight, you feel caught in your own storm, worries crashing like waves, doubts howling like winds. Let this story remind you, Storms are passing things. Hold steady, breathe deeply, and the calm will come. Rest here in this truth. Breathing in, you are strong. Breathing out, you are safe. The disciples who heard this parable carried it always. When hardship arose, they remembered the merchant. They breathed, endured, and found safe harbor. So tonight, let this story cradle you. Imagine yourself upon a great ship, the sea calm, the stars shining above. The storm has passed, and peace spreads across the waters. Within you, the same peace glows, steady and endless as the ocean. Now, dear friend, let us continue. Ahead lies the 10th tale, the story of the swan with golden feathers, teaching us that true giving is done without asking anything in return. The Swan with Golden Feathers. Long ago, in a quiet village surrounded by fields of rice and lotus ponds, there lived a poor family, a mother and her 2 daughters. Their house was simple, their meals meager, but they loved one another deeply and shared what little they had. Unbeknownst to them, the father of the family, who had passed away in a previous life, had been reborn as a swan. Not an ordinary swan, but one whose feathers shone like pure gold. From his heavenly perch, he remembered his family's struggles. Seeing their hardship, he resolved to help them. One morning, as the sun rose over the fields, the swan descended to the village. He alighted gently on the roof of the house. The mother and daughters looked up in wonder. "A golden swan!" they cried. The swan spoke with a gentle voice. "Do not be afraid. I have come to help you. Each week, I shall leave you one of my golden feathers. Take it to the market, sell it, and you will have enough to live in comfort." At first, the family was astonished, but soon gratitude filled their hearts. True to his word, the swan returned each week, leaving a feather. The family sold it, and their poverty slowly eased. Their house was repaired, their meals became plentiful, and joy returned to their lives. Yet, as time passed, greed began to stir in the mother's heart. One day she thought, "If one feather can bring us so much, what if we took them all? Then we would be rich at once and never worry again." Blinded by desire, she confided in her daughters. The girls were hesitant, but the mother's mind was set. The next time the swan arrived, she grasped him suddenly and plucked all his golden feathers at once. But to her shock, the feathers she tore away turned dull and gray in her hands. No longer gold, they were ordinary feathers, worthless. The swan, trembling from pain, spoke sadly, "Foolish one, my gift was meant to ease your life little by little, born from love and patience. Greed has destroyed the blessing. From now on, I shall not return." With that, he flew away, leaving the family in sorrow. The golden feathers never grew back, and the mother wept for what she had lost. The Buddha looked at his disciples and said, "In that life, I was the swan. Even then, I taught that true giving is steady and patient, asking for nothing in return. But when giving meets greed, its blessing fades. To receive with gratitude is as important as to give with love." The monks bowed deeply, understanding that generosity is a sacred bond between giver and receiver. Dear friend, this story is also for us. How often do we take blessings for granted, demanding more when we already have enough? How often does greed blind us to gratitude? The swan reminds us, true giving is not hurried, nor is it bound by desire. It flows like a river, steady and free. Take a slow, deep breath in and release it softly. Again, inhale gratitude. Exhale greed. With each breath in, imagine the shining feather of the swan resting in your hand. With each breath out, imagine your heart opening with thankfulness. Breathing in, you receive with joy. Breathing out, you give with love. Perhaps tonight, you long for more than you have, restless and unsatisfied. Let this story remind you, enough is a blessing. Gratitude is wealth. What you have now, however small, can be a treasure when received with a thankful heart. Rest here in this truth. Breathing in, you are grateful. Breathing out, you are at peace. The disciples who heard this parable carried it always. When desire tempted them, they remembered the swan's sorrow. When gratitude filled them, they remembered his golden gift, and in this way, they walked the path of generosity with humility and joy. So tonight, let this story cradle you. Imagine a quiet pond beneath the moon. A swan glides across the water, its feathers gleaming gold. It leaves behind one shining feather, a gift of love, before vanishing into the sky. You hold the feather close, your heart full of peace. Now, dear friend, let us continue. Ahead lies the 11th tale, the story of the Bodhisattva as a physician, teaching us that healing arises not only from skill, but from wisdom and compassion. The Bodhisattva as a physician. Long ago, in a prosperous city surrounded by rivers and gardens, there lived a physician unlike any other. His hands were skilled, his mind keen, and his heart vast with compassion. He studied herbs, roots, and minerals, but more than knowledge, he carried kindness. To the rich, he gave remedies with wisdom. To the poor, he offered medicine freely, never asking for payment. For him, healing was not business, but a sacred duty. The people loved him. Children smiled when he entered their homes. Mothers wept with gratitude when their little ones recovered, and elders blessed him for easing their pain. Yet the physician often reminded them, the body can be healed with herbs, but the heart must also be soothed. Without peace of mind, no cure is complete. One year, a terrible plague swept through the land. It began quietly, with fever and cough. Soon, it spread like wildfire. Families hid indoors, markets emptied, fear darkened the streets. Strong men fell weak, children burned with fever, and even the learned physicians of the court despaired. But the Bodhisattva physician did not flee. With calm steps, he walked into the heart of the suffering. Day after day, he moved from house to house, carrying jars of herbs, bowls of broth, and gentle words. When he entered a home, he would sit beside the sick, touch their burning foreheads, and whisper, "Breathe slowly. You are not alone. Medicine will cool your body, but compassion will cool your heart." Many who had lost hope found strength simply in his presence. At last, the sickness reached the palace. The king himself lay ill, his face pale, his breath shallow, his spirit broken. Ministers panicked, whispering of doom, for if the king died, the kingdom might fall into chaos. The physician was summoned. When he entered the royal chamber, the king looked up with weary eyes and whispered, "Can you save me? My body burns, my spirit trembles. I fear death, and I see no escape." The physician bowed, "Great king, your body is sick, and I have medicine for it. But your mind too is sick, with fear, with clinging, with sorrow. I can ease your fever, but only you can release your fear. Drink this draught, and as you do, breathe deeply. Inhale calm, exhale fear. Trust that healing flows when the heart is steady." The king obeyed. The medicine cooled his fever, and the physician sat beside him, guiding his breath. Breathe in peace, breathe out fear. Breathe in life, breathe out clinging. Over days, the fever broke, and the king grew strong again. With tears in his eyes, he said, "You have not only saved my body, but healed my heart. I see now that health is not merely the absence of sickness, but the presence of peace." When the plague had passed, the people gathered to honor the physician. They brought gifts, flowers, and offerings, praising him as savior of the city. But he bowed his head and said, "Do not honor me. Honor compassion, for it is compassion that heals all wounds. Herbs may cure the flesh, but love heals the soul." The Buddha looked at his disciples and said, "In that life, I was the physician. Even then, I knew that to heal truly is to touch both body and mind. Herbs and remedies ease the flesh, but compassion frees the heart." The monks bowed deeply, their hearts filled with reverence. Dear friend, this story is also for us. How often do we rush to mend what is broken outside, forgetting the wounds within? How often do we soothe the body, but ignore the aching of the spirit? The physician reminds us, true healing begins with compassion for others and for ourselves. Take a slow, deep breath in and release it softly. Again, inhale healing. Exhale fear. With each breath in, imagine a gentle light filling your body, easing every ache. With each breath out, imagine your worries dissolving into the night. Breathing in, you are whole. Breathing out, you are free. Perhaps tonight, you carry pain in your body, in your mind, or in your heart. Let this story remind you, healing is possible. You need not fight alone. Each breath is medicine. Each act of kindness a balm. Rest here in this truth. Breathing in, you are cared for. Breathing out, you are at peace. The disciples who heard this parable remembered it always. When they met the sick, they did not look away. Even without medicine, they offered compassion, and compassion itself became the cure. So tonight, let this story cradle you. Imagine a calm night. A wise physician walks softly through a village, carrying herbs and kindness in equal measure. He comes to you, lays a gentle hand upon you, and with his presence, your heart finds peace. Now, dear friend, let us continue. Ahead lies the 12th tale, the story of the Great Monkey's Bridge, teaching us that the path to freedom is built upon selfless sacrifice. The Great Monkey's Bridge. Long ago, in a dense forest near the bend of a wide river, there lived a great troop of monkeys. They swung through the branches, played among the leaves, and gathered fruit in abundance. Their leader was no ordinary monkey. His body was strong. His eyes shone with wisdom, and his heart overflowed with compassion. The troop loved him dearly, for he was their protector, their guide, and their king. One season, the mango trees along the river blossomed, their branches heavy with sweet golden fruit. The monkeys feasted joyfully, but one tree grew near the edge of the water, and some of its branches stretched out over the river itself. Downstream, a human king ruled a grand city. One day, he came with his men to bathe in the river. Looking up, he saw a ripe mango fall from the tree into the water. Carried by the current, it drifted to where he stood. The king picked it up, bit into its flesh, and gasped. "Never have I tasted such sweetness," he cried. Greed filled his heart. He ordered his men to search upstream for the tree. When they found it, they saw the monkeys feasting. The king's eyes darkened. "The fruit belongs to me," he declared. "Kill the monkeys and let us claim the tree." The soldiers raised their bows. Panic spread among the troop. Mothers clutched their children. The young cried out in fear. The Monkey King's heart burned with sorrow. He could not let his people perish. Climbing to the highest branch, he measured the distance from tree to shore. Grasping a strong vine, he leapt across the river. His body stretched wide, his arms clinging to the branch on one side, his legs to the shore on the other. He became a bridge of living flesh. "Come," he called to his people. "Cross over me." "Do not fear. I will hold one by one." The monkeys climbed upon his back. The mothers carried their little ones. The weak were guided by the strong. Step by step, they crossed the trembling bridge of their king's body. The river roared below. The soldiers shouted, but the Monkey King held firm, though his muscles tore and his strength faltered. At last, the whole troop reached safety on the far shore. Only then did the Monkey King's body give way. He fell, broken and weary, into the riverbank. The human king, who had watched it all, was struck with awe. He hurried forward, knelt beside the fallen Monkey King, and said, "Great One, why did you risk your life so? You could have saved yourself." With a faint voice, the Monkey King whispered, "A leader does not abandon his people. My joy is in their safety. If my body becomes a bridge and they live, then my life is well given." Tears filled the king's eyes. He ordered his men to lower their weapons. "This noble one is greater than any king among men. From this day, no harm shall come to his troop. Let them live in peace." And so it was. The monkeys flourished, protected by the memory of their king's sacrifice. The Buddha looked at his disciples and said, "In that life, I was the Monkey King. Even then, I gave myself so that others might live." Know this, monks, true leadership is not in power or wealth, but in selfless compassion. To be a bridge for others is the noblest path. The monks bowed deeply, their hearts moved to tears. Dear friend, this story is also for us. How often do we think only of our own safety, turning away when others suffer? The Monkey King reminds us, compassion builds bridges, and through those bridges, others find life. take a slow, deep breath in and release it softly. Again, inhale courage. Exhale fear. With each breath in, imagine yourself steady as the Monkey King, strong and unshaken. With each breath out, imagine others crossing safely because of your kindness. Breathing in, you are a bridge. Breathing out, you bring peace. Perhaps tonight you feel weary, uncertain, or alone. Let this story remind you, every act of selflessness, great or small, becomes a bridge for someone else. A word of comfort, a hand extended, a heart that cares. Each is a path that leads others to safety. Rest here in this truth. Breathing in, you give. Breathing out, you rest in peace. The disciples who heard this parable remembered it always. When pride tempted them, they recalled the Monkey King's humility. When selfishness arose, they remembered his sacrifice, and so they too became bridges of compassion. So tonight, let this story cradle you. Imagine a quiet river under the moon. Across its waters, a bridge of light stretches, built not of wood or stone, but of kindness. You step upon it, safe, steady, and free. Now, dear friend, we have reached the end of the Jataka Tales for tonight. Ahead lies the closing words, a gentle blessing to carry you into rest. Dear friend, our journey through the Jataka Tales comes to a gentle close. 12 stories have unfolded tonight, each one a window into the past lives of the Buddha. Through animals and kings, through forests and rivers, through sacrifice and compassion, we have seen how awakening is not born in a single moment, but cultivated over countless lifetimes. We met the Monkey King, who gave his body to save his tribe. We saw the golden deer teach kindness to a human king. We walked with the mighty elephant, who used his strength not to harm, but to protect. We watched the brave parrot fight fire with only his wings, and the Banyan Deer, who spared a mother and her unborn child. We looked up at the moon and saw the Selfless Hare, who gave his very body for love. We stood in awe of the prince who fed his life to the hungry tigress. We smiled at the wise rabbit, who showed that fear dissolves when we see clearly. We endured storms with the merchant, learned gratitude from the swan with golden feathers, received healing from the physician, and crossed the river of danger upon the great monkey's bridge. Each story was simple, yet each carried a truth deeper than the sea. Compassion is strength. Generosity is wealth. Courage is light, and wisdom is peace. Now, as you rest, you do not need to cling to every word. Let the stories drift through you like dreams upon water. Let them settle quietly in your heart, like seeds waiting for spring. In time, they will bloom in ways you cannot yet see. The day is over. The night is calm. Whatever burdens you carried can be set down now. You are safe. You are cared for. You are free. Take a slow, deep breath in and let it out gently. Again, inhale, calm. Exhale, rest. With each breath in, imagine the soft glow of the moon above. With each breath out, imagine yourself sinking into a river of peace. Breathing in, you are whole. Breathing out, you are at ease. Perhaps worries still stir within you, like ripples upon a pond. Let them fade. You do not need to solve everything tonight. You do not need to chase answers or hold tightly to fears. Let them go as leaves drift upon the current. Rest here, dear friend. Rest in compassion. Rest in wisdom. Rest in peace. The disciples who heard the Buddha's Jataka Tales often sat silently afterward, their hearts softened, their minds calmed. Some closed their eyes, letting the stories echo softly, carrying them into rest. And so it may be for you tonight. You are not alone. Across the ages, countless beings have walked this path, carried by the same truths, guided by the same compassion. Tonight, you walk with them. Tonight, you rest among them. So let sleep come to you as softly as moonlight. Let the breath guide you as gently as a river's flow. Let compassion cradle you as surely as the earth beneath your body. The stories are complete. The path is before you. Peace is within you. Rest now. Sleep now. Be free.